Introducing external views in ERStudio. So we're seeing many of our customers now creating views in databases that pull data from other databases. So we've extended ERStudio to be able to support that mechanism, and we're providing the support in initially 3 database platforms: SQL Server, Synapse and Snowflake. The primary use case that we're seeing is in data warehousing. So in a multi-layered data warehouse, here we've got a medallion architecture with bronze, silver and gold layers. So traditionally you'd replicate the data in persisted tables. So we pull the data into bronze, we'd then copy the data into silver, and we make another copy again of processed data across into the gold tables, okay, with storage at each layer. To reduce storage costs, many of our customers are creating views in the gold or even the silver layers, which reduce storage costs and gives more agility to change. So here's the scenario. So in our database server, we've got 3 databases, A, B and C. In database A, we've got 3 views, X prime, Y prime and Z prime. Z prime is pulling data from a table inside that database, so a very standard construct there. Views X prime and Y prime are pulling data from different databases, and we've got tables X and Y on 2 different databases there, B and C. So what we've done with ERStudio is allow you to create a model. So we're going to reverse engineer database A and create a new physical model. ERStudio will pull in those 3 views, X prime, Y prime and Z prime, as normal. But what it also does is then look at the tables that are providing those views. So in this case we've got the Z table, which we pulled in as normal. But for tables X and Y in the other databases, ERStudio can look at those databases and create replica objects for those tables, pulling in very basic metadata about those tables. And in the replica object you can add in documentation fields like descriptions. So we've nicely documented database A. But we want to know more information about X and Y tables. So potentially you could add a new physical model to the DM1 and reverse engineer in database B here, pulling in the tables X and Q. And likewise we could potentially create another DM1 for our C database, pulling in table Y. Then what we want to do is be able to join those replica objects to the actual live tables, so we can navigate to them and find out more information about those tables. So ERStudio allows you to use the compare merge tool to create, it's a type of universal mapping that links the replica object to the actual table that realizes that replica object. So the replica object is there to drive view generation in Data Architect. So it lists all the available columns for that table and allows you to modify and create new views. But for actual documentation against the table, you'd go to the physical model that has reversed engineered that database. And then the last thing we want to be able to do is to create a logical model that describes all the information. So ERStudio will, as soon as we reverse engineer that A database, automatically create a logical model, and then you can use compare merge to bring in entities from other physical models onto it. So let's go and look at a demo. So we're in our Snowflake database IDE. We've got 2 databases. We've got a database that represents our silver layer here, trng_db. It's got a bunch of tables in there, so that represents our silver layer. And we've got another database. We've got our gold views layer, and we can see that we've got 3 views in here. Okay, 2 dimensions and a facts table. So let's go and reverse engineer these into ERStudio and see what we get. Okay, so let's reverse engineer an existing database. We'll use a quick launch file. Selecting our views database, our gold views database. There's the 3 views that we've just been looking at. Okay, so we'll make sure reverse engineering view dependencies. We'll select a naming standards template. That'll generate nice logical names for us. Okay, so here's our physical model. So there's our three views that we were just looking at. They're pulling from these replica tables. So these tables don't exist in that database. So ERStudio's fetched the basic information about those two tables and created these replica objects, okay, which gives us the list of columns and some basic information about those columns, enough to power the views, and allow us to change the views and create new views. Okay, so the next step is we want to understand the source database, the Silver database that these views are pulling data from. So we can add a new physical model and reverse engineer that database. We'll call it Silver. Again, we'll use our quick launch. There's our tables. And we'll use our naming standards template again. I've laid this out just how I want it. We've got two things to do. We've got to update our logical model with these new tables, create entities for each of these so they're nicely documented. And then we also want to connect these tables to the replica objects that we've got in our gold layer. And we're going to use compare merge to do that. So let's start off updating the logical model. We use compare merge. Copy everything in. We've now got a nice logical model that describes all the information in this database. And the next thing we want to do is to be able to connect these two replica objects to our Silver layer tables. So again, we'll use compare merge to do that. So use our match objects. We left click on the left hand table and right click on the right hand table, and that matches them. Okay. And then we just save those replica matches and hit finish. So now in this nicely documented model of our gold layer database, we can see the views, we can see the tables that they're coming from, and we've got traceability back to the other model. So now this links us both to our table in the physical model. We can see all the physical details of this table. We can also hop up to the logical model, which gives us our business documentation of this information. And obviously we can also map to things like business glossary terms when we've checked it into our repository. So it's fully documented. One of the last things to note is we've extended the addressing of tables. So you can now see in the owner property here, we've got the name of the database and then the name of the schema. And our view parsers will now process that fully qualified address structure properly. Okay, so that's external view support in ERStudio. It's making it easier to model complex data platforms, primarily for data warehousing projects. Thanks for listening. For more information, contact us at sales@idera.com or scan the QR code.